Hi everyone, my name is Elaine, and today I'm going to be both summarizing and reviewing the 39th novel in Terry Pratchett's Discworld series, Snuff, starting with the summary. Vimes is forced to take a holiday with his family in the countryside. They'll be staying at Crundle's, aka Ramkin Hall. Shortly after their arrival, Vimes gets into a fight with a hot-headed local blacksmith, Jethro, who isn't fond of nobles. The fight is to determine the ownership of the manor and environs. The fight ends in a draw. Afterward, Vimes realizes that there's something Jethro wants to tell him about what's going on in the countryside. Jethro instructs him to meet him at midnight at Dead Man's Copse on the hill. That's on page 97. While at a dinner party, Vimes comes to realize that the locals aren't fond of goblins and that several people aren't telling him something important. Vimes and Willykins head up to Dead Man's Copse to meet the blacksmith. They don't find him. But they do find a lot of blood, a stone ring, and a goblin's claw. Vimes begins investigating the mysterious disappearance and presumed murder. Feeney Upshot, the local chief constable, arrives at the hall to arrest Vimes. It is assumed Vimes killed Jethro. Vimes allows himself to be arrested. After realizing that the boy doesn't know what he's doing, Vimes takes Feeney under his wing and continues to teach him how to be a more competent cop, as they set out to solve a crime or two together. A meeting of the local magistrates makes it clear that they requested Vimes' arrest and know what happened to the goblin whose claw he found. Stinky, the goblin, leads the cops to Hangman's Hill and another small group of goblins. They want justice. The cops are led into a cave where there are signs of goblins everywhere, but no sign of the goblins themselves. That's on page 165. As they are led along, Vimes realizes he can see in the enveloping darkness because of his connection to the summoning dark. Their journey through the cave ends in a group of roughly 100 mostly armed goblins demanding justice and a goblin corpse. Sergeant Cullen finds an unge pot in one of his cigars. Tree believes it's the Soul of Tears, a pot which contains the living soul of a goblin child. That's on page 175. Vimes realizes it's the decapitated corpse of the female whose claw he had found with Willykins. Judging by her wounds, he surmises that she was killed defending herself and her blood was used to frame him. Vimes vows to find the killer and deliver justice. The cops begin searching the cave in the hope of finding the missing blacksmith. They find Miss Felicity Beadle instead, the author of several best-selling children's books. She has been teaching some of the goblin children how to read and communicate with humans. She also reveals that the goblins are being slaughtered since they are viewed as dumb nuisances. Feeney reveals that 3 years ago, a load of goblins had been taken out of the hill. A bunch of men, gamekeepers and roughs mostly, came down from the cave dragging goblins behind them. Lots of them. The goblins were all sort of meek. They didn't know what to do. The magistrate said it was alright because they were nothing more than vermin, and they were going to be taken down to the docks where they could earn their living for a change and not bother other people. They were going somewhere sunny, a long way away from here. They were just to be put to work for their living. It was doing them a favor. It wasn't as if they were going to be killed. That's on pages 198 to 99. Vimes realizes that they were made into slaves. Colin begins acting strange and his voice is changed. Miss Beadle informs Vine that the goblins also believe they're trash. They think they did something very bad a long time ago. And because of it, they've lived like they do. They think they have it coming to them. That's on page 233. This appears to explain their meek attitudes when their fellows were taken away. The cops interrogate Mr. Flutter, a man known for consistently being involved in the local crime scene. They discover that Stratford killed the goblin girl. The summoning dark confirms his story, that he tried to stop Stratford, but the goblin was killed for her blood anyway. Vimes confiscates and burns the drugs Flutter had been smuggling on his farm. While he is being brought in, Flutter reveals that young Lord Russ might be behind it all. Carrot and Angua discover that Colin's life is in danger and that only a goblin maiden can help him. Cheery discovers that Colin's cigar came from Hoandaland. Vimes discovers that a bunch of goblins from Overhang were grabbed and put on an ox boat down the river. That's on page 308. Feeney makes Stinky into a probationary special constable. Wee Mad Arthur flies to Hoandaland and discovers a tobacco plantation where goblins had been used as slaves. There are lots of bones, dead and dying. He delivers justice. During a storm, the cops head after the wonderful Fanny. They hope to rescue the goblins they believe it to be carrying down old treachery. The cops head onto the river and begin freeing the goblins who still live. After further investigation, the cops discover that the Fanny has been taken over by Stratford and his men, some of which have already been killed. Vimes battles with Stratford, who escapes. Vimes is forced to act as lookout for the Fanny's captain, Gastric Silito, so they can arrive safely at port in Quirm. Stratford reappears. Vimes manages to arrest him with Stinky's help. Vimes and company arrive safely in Quirm. Vimes discovers that the goblins have been shipped out. He prepares to go after them. Vimes discovers that Stratford has escaped, again. Wee Mad Arthur informs Vimes of everything that's going on with Colin's condition and what he found on the plantation. All the dead and dying goblins. Vimes instructs him to have Colin sent to Ramkin Hall. When Vimes catches up with the ship he had been chasing, he finds the goblins and the missing blacksmith. Vimes discovers that the smuggling ship was headed for Hoandaland. Stinky begins to lead the rescue goblins home. Feeney and Vimes head back to the country. A goblin girl takes the pot Colin found from him. He begins to return to normal. Vimes informs his wife that the blacksmith had told him that Rust was behind the goblin's eviction 3 years earlier. Vimes captures Stratford after he attempts to harm young Sam. Sybil organizes a concert for Tears of the Mushroom to play her Twilight Serenade. Vimes announces that the goblins are now under his protection and that of the law and also subject to it. Stratford escapes again. Willekins kills Stratford. The patrician meets with Vimes. The patrician confirms that young Lord Rust was behind everything. The goblins slaughter and slavery, and that he has been disinherited by his father for his actions. Furthermore, the goblins' recital has spurred world leaders to turn some animals into people at a stroke. That was on page 462. And that's the end of the novel. Now, on to my book review. I felt as though this novel had a very, very slow and painful start and didn't really speed up much until the end. But even then, it was a bit slow for my taste. I also felt as though the Stratford escapes were excessive and unnecessary and simply drew out an already long novel. With that being said, I liked how Pratchett deepened Sam Vimes' relationship with his family by going into more depth when discussing his interactions with them. Furthermore, Pratchett delved into the psyche of the goblin, which is something I don't believe I've ever seen done before and definitely enjoyed reading. In the same breath, Pratchett also discussed prejudice in the world's view of goblins and how it may be shifted by something positive. As a result, I felt as though this novel was far deeper than any of the other novels in the Discworld series because it mirrored the real world and how people often discriminate against others because of their foreign beliefs and or practices. With the novel's ending, he also suggested that these prejudices are stupid and should be stripped away, which is something I strongly support. So overall, I gave this book a 3 out of 5 star rating. And there you have it, my summary and review of Terry Pratchett's Snuff. What did you think of my summary, my review, and this book if you read it? Let me know down below in the comments. I always like to know what you guys think. And if you like what you saw here today, please smash that like button until it's blue, subscribe, ring that bell so you'll know what's up, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Bye, guys.